Hello and welcome to Perspectives. My name is Gloria. We have a special guest on the show and he's here to tell us everything about his work and family, everything in between. He's a lawyer extraordinaire and quite a controversial individual. He's going to be talking to us about so many things, so stick with us. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back. This is Perspectives. We are privileged to have with us a special guest. His name is Barrister Emeka Ugwuonye. He is the principal partner Ekulo Group and also the founder of Due Process Advocates, and that is a 200,000 member group on Facebook, and they are setting the pace when it comes to justice and equity for all. So join me in welcome Barrister Emeka Ugwuonye. You're welcome on board Perspectives.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, like I said, you're quite a controversial individual, so we want to hear from you. Who exactly is Emeka Ugwuonye?
Thank you for that question. I think it's a compliment these days to be described as controversial, but I am benign, controversial in a benign way. Emeka Ugwuonye means, I would say, 1,000 things to 1,000 different people. But given the opportunity to describe myself, I'm actually a very simple person. I was born and brought up in Enugu State. I studied in Enugu until I finished secondary school. I then left Enugu and went to Uniben, where I studied law. And from there, I went to Nigerian Law School, Lagos. Then there was only one law school, that was Lagos. Yeah. And I left, and a few years after, I went to the United States to study law at Harvard, and then stayed over in the United States for 25 years. Wow. And I'm back in Nigeria today. So I think that's a good way to start.
That is a very good way to start. But of course, I'm going to take you back all the same. How was childhood for you?
Very interesting. I was born at the most difficult moment in Nigerian history. I was only a few months old when the Nigerian Civil War started. Okay. So I spent the first 4 years of my life dealing with the extremely difficult and painful period of Nigerian history, the war itself. Okay. And at the end of the war, I lost my father, so my family became broke. I would say broke instead of being poor, because I am the grandson of Zani, and my family remained famous and prominent in my community. But at the end of the war, we had nothing. We were so broke. Yes. So I became poor, and that situation remained all the way till I finished elementary school. I recalled that when I finished elementary school, and there was no money for me to go to secondary school, even though I was the best student in my class. You know, there was really no money.
So how did you manage? So what happened?
It's quite difficult to say this, but it's funny. I recalled I wasn't going to go to secondary school. I was going to go to Onisha and study something, or no, not study, learn how to become a welder or a trader on motor parts. And there was no prospect of going to secondary school. My mother was just crying. She didn't know what to do. So, but my teacher came to see my mother and said, it's unthinkable for the best student not to go forward. He had to go forward. My mother said, but we have no money, nothing, no means of sending him to secondary school. My teacher said, but your husband was a prominent man. He must have friends. Talk to them. So my mom began to talk to my father's friends. And one of them said, well, before we do anything for your son, why not you try his relatives? So go and call his uncles and find out what they were willing to do to help him. So my mother came and called a meeting of my kinsmen. And we all gathered. I was 12 years old, 11 years old. I was a kid, really, but I had to be present at that meeting. My uncles all gathered very early in the morning. I never understood why people would be having meetings by 5 a.m., but it made sense later. I learned that they had to meet so early so nobody would be drunk, you know. So, but we had that meeting that day, and every uncle of mine was to suggest, you know, what his contribution was going to be. And they came with very fine ideas by their standards. One who said, oh, I know someone in Onisha. He's been a successful welder. He can take him to apprentice for him as a welder. And then some will say, all kind of things. The most progressive suggestion made at that meeting was one of the men suggested, okay, he should go to commercial school. There was something called commercial school in Nigeria then. 3-year program. You go in there, you learn how to type, and then you start working. So they said, listen, let Emeka go to commercial school. After 3 years, he'll be able to come out and be able to help his mother get some job or something. So then the final man to speak was my uncle, the closest to me. He was the elder brother to my father, but he was an illiterate but successful wine tapper and a basket maker. So when they asked him, his name was Okafor. They said, Okafor, what's your suggestion? Okafor suddenly pulled a sharp knife, placed it on the table right there in the middle of everybody. So people were shocked. Okafor, what are you up to? Okafor said, well, it's only what you know you can teach somebody. All my life I have been a wine tapper and a basket maker, and so for my nephew, I'm prepared to teach him what I know how to do. So I bought this knife for him. He then explained why he brought these sharp knives to the meeting. He said, I bought these knives for him so that after this meeting, he's going to follow me straight. And we will learn, I'll teach him how to tap wine. So, and Okafor was so emphatic. He said, listen, unlike all of you who had all these fancy ideas of what other people do, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do right now. We are going straight to tap wine. So, I sat there and listened to all these people. I knew they were talking nonsense, really, because I knew I wasn't going to tap wine. I knew I wasn't going to learn motor parts. But I just didn't know how else to deal with it. So from this extraordinary beginning, the struggle started. I went to secondary school, was the best student all the way, and ultimately, went to Harvard Law School. So it's a very extraordinary experience.
Okay, nice one, but you're not telling us something. How did you get to secondary school, or, when your uncles all didn't want to have anything to do with it?
Okay, what happened was that my father's friends began to chip in things, and then I went to secondary school. The first year in secondary school, they had a competitive scholarship test, and I was the best in the test, so I had scholarship to secondary school. And I think I have been lucky, really, because I have always been the best in my class, and it helped. Okay. So I won all the scholarships. So I keep telling my friends that if I had to repeat any subject, if I had to recite WAEC or anything, I wouldn't have made it. So, but that was what happened. There was a series of providential interventions in my life, and scholarships here, the scholarships there, ultimately even scholarship to Harvard.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, fine. Then what made you decide to study law?
Simple. I think I trace it to my grandfather. My grandfather was a customary court judge.
I see.
They said the local story is that I was his reincarnate. So people associated me with my grandfather. They said I looked like him and acted like him and behaved like him. So as a kid, and my grandfather was highly respected in our community. They still mention him with this extraordinary reverence. So, being considered the reincarnate of a very important man begins to influence your conduct. Because you begin to conform to look like that which you are described to be by some spiritual mechanism. So by reincarnation, of course, is spiritual mechanism, because it makes no sense to say that instead of talking of genetics, my people talk of reincarnation. So, but that was how my interest went into law. That's part of it, though. Another part of it is that I have been somebody so close to the question of justice. When my father died, my mother suffered extraordinary persecution under the Igbo customary law. And that was when I was able to see what it meant really to be a woman under this excruciatingly painful customary law burden in Igbo land. I say this very openly. So I saw it, and you spent 4 years in a war. Then you are reincarnated of a judge, and then you became an orphan, and you were raised up by a single mother who was persecuted under the customary regime. So ultimately, I had a perfect set of factors in my life to push me in the direction of law and the question of justice and fairness.
Okay, good. And good, I think you're actually doing very well at the profession. Now, you must have practiced in the States. Yes, you said you lived there 25 years.
That is correct. I was called the Nigerian bar. I worked with Chevron. And I went to Harvard, graduated, got called to the bar in New York. And first I taught at Harvard. When I graduated, I was again the best student, and I was asked to teach at Harvard. I was an assistant professor at age 27, which was quite fast by that standard, especially for somebody who came from the village. So, but from Harvard, I went to the World Bank as legal counsel in Washington, D.C., and from there, I went into private practice, established Nick Company in New York.
Okay.
So from there, I have been in practice since then, and we had a law firm in the United States. We still have it's now reduced in size, really, because I'm devoting so much time in Nigeria. But my law practice is still at a skeletal level in the United States. And I have opened now in Nigeria with offices in Lagos and increasing presence in Abuja and Port Harcourt.
So what is it like practicing in Nigeria, of course, compared to practice in the States?
Okay. Let me reverse the question and say, what is it like practicing in the United States after becoming a lawyer in Nigeria? It's a different experience. Yeah. It's really a different experience. United States legal system is one of the most advanced in the world. Okay. So their legal system, the institutions and structures are very well tested, and the legal education also in the United States is slightly different because unlike in Nigeria, where you can go to study law from secondary school, United States requires you to have been a BS, that's a holder of a first degree, that's finished a first degree education before you can get in there. So you're going to have students more mature, more experienced, more able to handle the rigors of legal literature and legal education. For instance, in the United States, a first-year law student is equivalent to a first-year master's degree student everywhere.
Yes, I understand.
So he's not going to have problem understanding the language. He's not going to have a problem articulating.
Exactly.
He's going to. So it is a more advanced process. So they come out more prepared, more able, comparatively with Nigeria. So I studied in Nigeria. I was good by Nigerian standard. I ended up at Harvard with this extraordinarily brilliant student, and then you have to start a struggle all over. Then you get into the real practice. Law, as you know, is a very competitive business. Yes, it's not only is it competitive, you may say other things are competitive, but law is uniquely confrontational in nature. That's okay, apart from wrestlers and boxers or footballers. You're going to get into that courtroom. You're going to take a position, you're going to defend that position as you have someone holding on to a different position, driving for a different outcome. And you're going to go through the rigor of fine argument with a judge listening through this process. And all the arguments, it's not just going to be a fine argument, you're going to be making precise and effective references to the legal materials, the literature, the case law, and at the end of it, you expect to win. So for me, getting into the United States, I was grossly inadequate. I can tell you that in Nigeria, because you look at it, you go to Nigerian courts there, you look at a Nigerian law graduate, brilliant by his standard, but by world standard, he can't even articulate. He can't even really compete. So now you get into the United States, and you're dealing with these people. They've never spoken any other language except English. Okay. So that's their natural language. So you don't have a situation like us, Nigerians, trying to think in the Nigerian way and then express it in English. And, that's why we say in Nigeria sometimes that somebody ate money. When you want to say somebody embezzled money, you say somebody ate money. Yeah. Makes no sense from an English-speaking person, but a Nigerian can say, I've seen it in American courts. A Nigerian comes in there and says, yes, Your Honor, he ate the money. And the judge says, my goodness, he ate the money? I'm just giving you an example of what it means.
You've not seen that now, have you? You have not seen that.
No, I have seen that.
You have?
But not by a lawyer. I have seen Nigerian community, Nigerian people in the United States having a dispute. It's, as you know, in the U.S., you have, every community has its Umuahia Association USA. Edo Association USA, that sort of thing. So then they had this dispute. The previous executive left. The new executive came in. The new executive contended that the previous executive embezzled money. Yeah. So they put somebody in the witness box to testify how money was embezzled, and he began to testify. He had a white American lawyer representing him, and the other group got me representing them. And when this whole thing started, they asked this guy to say what happened. He said, Your Honor, we contributed and contributed and contributed. He just wanted to say we contributed over a period of time. Yeah. He just wanted to make sure that the judge wouldn't think it was only one-time contribution. So we contributed and contributed and contributed. That's how somebody who's not good in the language will use the language. So, and he said, at the end of it, he ate the money. The judge said, excuse me? He said, yes, he ate the money. And the judge said, what about the change? That's the cost. He said, he ate everything. Because the money was about $36,000 and something cents. So the judge was terrified, was totally confused. And I had to say, Your Honor, may we approach the bench? May we approach the bench? The judge said, sure, please come. We approached the bench. I said, Your Honor, let's get it right. When he says he ate the money, he really meant he embezzled the money, not that he ingested the money. Okay. So the judge then understood what the man meant. You know, because in Nigeria, I can give you an example. In Nigeria, in Igbo language, if you say, Oliri rice, means he ate rice. Oliri ego means he embezzled money. Exactly. It's the same thing. Exactly. So when you now translate it to English, Oliri is eating, so you say he ate the money.
That's where it comes from, yes.
So that's how it comes. So there were some Igbo chaps there. So in the Igbo language, Oliri ego means he embezzled money. And Oliri rice means he ate rice. So now, we couldn't distinguish in Igbo language between, we don't have unique word for embezzlement, distinct from eating food. So this guy comes in and says that somebody ate money. Yeah. And that's confusing. Just an example of how the languages could be. I just give you an extreme case, but we see these things at other levels. When you see the Nigerian lawyers in the courts, I can tell you, I was in court in Abuja last week, and the lawyer wanted to say that somebody called them persistently. Okay. He just couldn't find the word persistently. He said, my Lord, he called and called and called and called and called. So, it was odd. Why would you repeat he called? Why would you repeat the word? He just find the word persistently to show that he did it over a period of time or for a number of times. Yeah. So, this could be a barrier. When you move from Nigeria and find yourself in adversarial American jurisprudence in the courtroom, it could be hard. For me, I had a preparation. God was wonderful. I didn't just go straight from here into the American courts. I had to pass through Harvard, and there was no school that could have prepared me better. Than Harvard. Okay. So, but even at that, it was an uphill task. After 25 years, now you come back to Nigeria, which was where we were questioning guys. It's also a entirely different experience, because you see yourself having to step down, having to be very careful, having to adjust so that people don't even misunderstand it. One problem I have had is sometimes I get into Nigerian courts and speak, and the judges think that I am affecting my accent. And that is extremely...
Okay, they think you're making it up.
Yes, they think so. They don't understand that after 25 years in America, there's no way it will not rub off me somehow. So they don't even realize the extraordinary effort I made to be able to fit in properly in the Nigerian setting. So, but that's usually the case when you're dealing with low-level judges. When you deal with very sophisticated judges, they understand that this is not effective.
All right. So, okay, then. We'll just take a short break here. And when we come back, some more on due process advocates. Don't go away. Hello and welcome back. It's been quite an interesting time already with Barrister Emeka Ugwuonye. He is the principal partner at Ekula Group and the founder Due Process Advocates. So, sir, tell us about Due Process Advocates.
In 2012, October 2012, I was in the United States when we watched the video of the lynching of 4 Uniport students, or some Uniport students, in a community in Rivers State called Alu. I was so shocked. The world was shocked. I couldn't finish watching the video, yet I knew I had to watch the video so that I could understand the gruesome incident that occurred in Nigeria. So I felt very deeply about that incident.
Okay.
I thought it was something we must never see again. It was a moment when it became clear to me that we had to approach the issue of justice in Nigeria fundamentally differently. So a friend of mine from Canada, a white woman from Canada who had been following my writings on Facebook, she sent me a message and said, Emeka, I think this is the moment for you to do something for your country. I immediately established DPA. We actually called DPA, initially we called it Uniport 4. That was the first name we gave it.
I remember I was actually in that group
exactly.
too.
So people responded and we moved it to something larger. Even though the experience, the incident in Alu gave that final, ultimate inspiration for the establishment of the group, we had to look beyond that particular incident. We had to look at a more diversified form of injustices in Nigeria and to begin to think in some consistent fashion about addressing injustices in this country.
Okay.
And of course, as you know, we've now gone beyond the issue of jungle justice to issue of police brutality, the military abuse of the rights of the civilians, and the overall constitutional project, the constitutional right project, because we're looking at the systemic abuse of these rights, which, as you know, is not just an individual encounter. It is the ultimate question of the character of the Nigerian state, because the fundamental right in the Constitution is intended to reflect some sphere of influence where it is believed that the state cannot encroach upon the individual rights, individual freedom. So that's where we are. And now, of course, when I got into the issue of police brutality, many people, many Nigerian men were happy that someone could speak up against the police. And I was there now. We call the police, we say, you can't do this. And they listen to me, they say, this man is crazy. He's an American kind of guy. And they let my people go. So the people liked for me to intervene. Yeah. But then I began also to see. Anyway, let me allow you to build up this process.
The thing is that it's actually a different move. People haven't seen it before. So the fact that you were actually making waves and there was quite some impact was surprising to a few. And then it was definitely a welcome development by so many. So tell me, is it registered?
Yes, we are. Yes, we have taken all the necessary steps. As an NGO.
As an NGO?
Yes. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So as a registered trustee under Nigerian corporate law, that's the Companies and Allied Matters Act.
Okay, so it is an NGO?
Yes, indeed. It is an NGO. And when we say the word NGO, we have to again remember what an NGO means. An NGO actually means an organization that supplies public good, but which is not government. That's what an NGO means. An NGO is not just enough to say it is not a government organization. Of course, UBA is not a government organization, and all these companies are not government, but they are not NGOs because they are not providing public good. So what we are doing and what NGOs do, and which set them apart from other things, is that they supply public good. They step into those spheres where government had historically, occupied. That is helping people, like the issue of justice now. If you look at the Nigerian Constitution, it says that a person is supposed to be represented by counsel whenever accused in a criminal.
Exactly. But you see, not many people can afford that.
It's impossible.
Yes.
So that's why all over the world, all governments, they have some kind of legal aid system to help the poor. In America today, you cannot stand a criminal trial without a lawyer being given to you if you cannot afford one.
Exactly.
Now, we don't have these things in Nigeria.
But we do have legal aid.
Yes, but they are not effective. Indeed, the extent of their reach is so minimal that as I speak to you today, thousands of people are in Kirikiri prison alone because they have no counsel. And they've had cases pending for 4 or 5 years and no counsel. So the legal aid had been so limited in its effect, in its reach, that ultimately it tended to favor the rich again instead of the very poor it was intended for. So DPA comes in, and this is what we have done in DPA that I keep trying to make sure people understand. We have created a system, finally, where nobody can now say he's too poor to afford a lawyer. Because once you're a registered member of DPA, it takes about 6,000 to be registered.
Okay.
You are going to have a lawyer for you whenever you are facing jeopardy. What I mean by jeopardy is whenever the state is against you and you are likely to lose your liberty and the police are arresting and detaining you, today we will be there.